Today in this my favorite studio in all of India, my favorite sound recordist Ajay Rathod, we're going to pay a tribute to English poetry through the poems of two very well-established poets and the poetry of a man who's established in many fields but not in the field of English poetry. The three poets are Moraes, Ranjit Hoskote and Ather Farouqui. I have been very fortunate to know all three of these gentlemen, and the gentleman I knew the least but whose poems I possibly love the most is Moraes. Near the end of his life, I was given an opportunity at a literary festival in Bandra in Mumbai to read his poems. He also came. And I read his poems and then I requested him, Dom, you also read, which he did. He was very weak by that time, but he read with great feeling. And Ather Farouqui Sahab has just given me a poem which he told me about, that this poem was written near the end of Dom's life when he knew that he was dying of cancer. Instead of spending those last days in some hospital, he took his beloved wife with him and went on a tour of Hindustan. And they went to Ayodhya. And this is what Dom wrote about Ayodhya near the end of his life, and was also the end of an era in that famous town of Ayodhya. I wish I had this memorized. I do not, so I'll read this in praise of Hindustan, in praise of English poetry, and in praise of Moraes. A day in Ayodhya. Inside the town, the time seems always noon. Around the temples where the symbols clash, a swollen sun breeds human stench and flies. Pilgrims stampede towards the guarded gates. Outside, wrapped in a sheet, a widowed crone starts dying alone while insects eat her eyes. The guide we've hired is only 12 years old. These tangled lanes are combat zones to him. He weaves us through careful, not like a child. Even now, beneath the skin, he sees the skull like all small children trapped in worlds at war. He sometimes smiles because you're beautiful. In a dense pack, the pilgrims howl like wolves as they glimpse Allah's hovel now destroyed. Their clothes are saffron, their eyes ominous, and soon with prayer they will call back God. Nearby, the party drones arrange on shelves the sacred tiles new made to build his house. We leave the woman dying and ask the boy, since the hard men first came into this town and pulled this piece apart like a white dove, how do things look? But Tulsi Ram won't say. He takes us to a place where Muslims live. We try and speak with them. They run away. At evening, we arrive where the town ends. Your name is from the river that flows past. The green trees flower here, the air is fresh. Into the shallows, shadowed now, you wade. Your golden feet in the sweet water splash. Colored by the last sun, the ripples spread. Tulsi Ram giggles, claps once more a child, and you turn west to see the sunlight leave. It's a lovely line. Tulsi Ram giggles, claps once more a child, and you turn west to see the sunlight leave. So great a tenderness now flows from me, it startles you. You glance at me and smile. These instants when we sense we truly live flash forward, then they freeze in memory. In the hired jeep we drive to the next town with air-conditioned rooms and Chinese food. We hold hands, but in slums of the bazaar, we leave our child and pray he stays alive in God's nest, where so many children are who need to find new words for human love. Dom Moraes. And of course, he was with the beautiful Leela Naidu at this time. And she's the woman that he's referring to. Just a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we did a lovely play called Marks My Word, originally written by Salman Khurshid and adapted into a play by Ather Farouqui Saab. In that play, there was a mention of Dom Moraes and Leela Naidu both. And many of the cast were younger people. When this section came up in the play, they asked me, who is Dom Moraes? Who is Leela Naidu? And what could I tell them? That's how time, like rivers, just flows on, and even a man of the genius of Dom Moraes and a woman of the ethereal beauty of Leela Naidu are forgotten. This collection of Dom Moraes' poems was edited with an introduction by Ranjit Hoskote. Here you can see the book. I have been very fortunate to be reading Ranjit's poetry publicly and privately for the last more than 20 years. And I have performed a play which he wrote as a prose poetry effort called The Last Annal of Alamgir. It's an amazing challenge to perform this, but it is written in some of the most beautiful English that I've ever heard written. So, with Ranjit's blessings, I'll just read one small section. This is Alamgir, who represents Aurangzeb at the end of his life, looking back on all that he did, right or wrong, good or bad. I'll just read one paragraph. It's fantastic. He's talking about himself. Tyrant or scapegoat? Perhaps the deep red hollow of the throne in Ashkabad was a reminder to whoever sat on it of the earliest kings of earth, those poor fools chosen by their tribe, or those unwary strangers conscripted to play the part who ruled for 1 year before they were sacrificed to the goddess of the fields. Have I also not been a sacrifice, lean and stringy though it be? My blood has streamed to the earth to fertilize these chapped plateaux, these clotted escarpments, these wrung-out hills. I cannot close my eyes, because from each clouded eyeball a jacaranda has burst and spread its velvet foliage, its hooded shadow over the raw, smarting wound of the landscape. Now, Ranjit, if I said that he was a disciple of Dom, that'll do justice to both of them. Of course, Ranjit is now a great poet in his own right, but you can see how deeply Dom has affected Ranjit and his thinking and his poetry. Now, to the recitation which is going to give me the most joy. I have known Ather Farouqui Saab for the last 7 years. We have done 2 plays together. Babar Ke Aulad, The Sons of Babar, which again was written originally in English by Salman Khurshid. Ather Farouqui Saab translated it into Urdu, and then another very dear friend, Dr. M. Saeed Alam Saab, ne adapted Ather Saab's Urdu translation to make it into a wonderful play called Babar Ke Aulad in Urdu Hindustani and Sons of Babar in English. And I've been very fortunate to play Zafar in that play. And I think we've done about 50 shows. And it talks about Zafar in Rangoon. कितना है बदनसीब ज़फ़र दफन के लिए, दो गज़ ज़मीन भी ना मिली कोई यार में. That's the Zafar who's in that play. And I've worked with Ather Farouqui on another play which I just mentioned, that is Marks My Word. And when he came to me with his English poetry, I said, oh my goodness gracious me. Because many people have come to me with poetry in English or Urdu, and poetry is something which is extremely difficult to comment about. It's like someone's religion or someone's manhood. Poetry is very close to the heart. So to criticize someone's poetry is extremely difficult. इसलिए जब मेरे पास किसी की शायरी आती है उर्दू में या हिंदी या अंग्रेजी में, I'm very worried. Well, I'm very happy to say that when Ather Saab's poetry came to me in English, I was both relieved at its excellence and also very joyful that here is another voice in English poetry in India. Of course, he still has a long ways to go, but he's certainly begun the journey in a very delightful way. So I'm going to read a few of his selected poems in English poetry by Ather Farouqui. The first poem has got a perfect title. It's called Words, Shabd Alfaz. I want to tell you a little background here, not about this, the word. There's a very famous play called Waiting for Godot, written by Samuel Beckett. I have performed the play with Nasiruddin Shah and Benjamin Gilani at least 50 times. In the middle of that play, one of the characters, I think Vladimir, who used to be a poet, he's exasperated and he says, words, words, words. I then did the play in Marathi. And that same line in Marathi, instead of words, 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 was shabda, shabda, shabda. It was even more powerful. So what Ather Farouqui Saab is talking about in this poem is exactly that. Words, 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 shabda, shabda, shabda. Words by Ather Farouqui. Words leave me fuming at their profundity, their subtle nuances, their fierce flow like some tidal surge enrages. Melody of life is now free to flap its wings and traverse through the blue. Thought and sound are married, glowing into each other. Are there no feeble words left? Are they on the list of the dying, the endangered? Should I not look farther? Words that don't shake me, don't leave me limp. Words, 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 shabda, shabda, shabda. There are two parts of the day that every single great poet and every single great language has always tried to describe. That is dusk and dawn. This next poem is titled Whether Dusk or Dawn. Mesmerizing, primordial, descended the day of creation with the beams of a sun gliding down the high heaven. Earth turned into a vibrant haze of motley hues. Surely God then unveiled his primal light. Drunk with the pride of self-awareness, people gathered and swore allegiance to a monster from whose ugly head shot forth a black and total death. Beams of the sun gliding down the high heaven, its dazed eye failed to differentiate dusk from the dawn. Well, this is another topic, एक और विषय है, एक और मौजू है that is part of every single great poem ever written. It is called loneliness. Loneliness. Splinters of shattered dreams and past humiliations Diary entries lacking intellectual nourishment, shadows of decaying bodies engraved upon the heart. The night recedes, resurges. Life's revolutions, pale illusions piled into an unvarying bundle. This is probably my favorite, snapshots. Giant people lost in a throng of pygmies, lips parched, dim-lit cups and bottles fly in the air. देखिए, लोग कहते हैं कि पैदाइश और मौत में कोई खास फर्क नहीं है. This poem is called Fetus Fashion He Lay. In other words, he lay like a fetus in a woman's or a mother's womb. Fetus fashion, he lay upon a busy street, a threat to himself and to many others. His teeth were even, white and small, but he lay crooked, bent like a bow. A bundle of follies and foibles. Was he bereft of tender emotions too? I don't know. But now he laughed, now he sobbed. Tears rolled down his cheeks, but he never blew his nose. Conflict. Another eternal subject of all great poetry, conflict. Evil holds good by the throat, drags it by the scruff of its neck. Poor good, it wilts, it looks like a hangdog. Evil roars with laughter. One day, tormented by loneliness, evil lurches forth, searches for the rival. The search renders its face gaunt and grey, and like something that the cat brought in. Children shoo it away, but still, there's no good anyway. Dekhiye, even evil can become lonely. One day, tormented by loneliness, evil lurches forth, searches for the rival. Bahut khoob. Nightmare. Tormented by rats nibbling at my extremities, I scamper off into a safe house built by a lemming. My face breaks into a smile in a daze of delight. I bend forward to hug it tightly, but I am stopped by yet another ratty-tatty face tugging fiercely at my string. Old lemmings enter their house with trolleys laden with mushroom pie. Would you like to taste the pie? Asks one of them. My mouth waters. I reach for it, but my hands are frozen. I stand upright with my tongue lolling out. I stand upright with my tongue lolling out. And the last poem, shall I terminate the journey? It's a question all of us ask ourselves time and time again. Shall I terminate the journey? Shall I terminate my journey? At this bend, where the miasma of pollution hangs in the air, where someone slapped me, swore at me, where the police were drugged out of their mind, where people with a haughty air threatened to break my legs, where rumors were floated killing people who weren't meant to die, I shall walk to where everything is cloaked in a shroud of dust. I shall walk to where everything is cloaked in a shroud of dust. Ather Sahib, thank you very, very much, not only for these beautiful poems, but for an opportunity to recite them and also to remember Dom Moraes and to appreciate once again Ranjit Hoskote. मैं सिर्फ इतना कहना चाहूँगा कि आपकी शायरी जो है बेशक अंग्रेजी में हो, but your शायरी is beyond any one particular language. Congratulations, it's the beginning of a journey, and it's a very tough journey. To be a poet is a very tough journey. And you've begun, and may whichever God you love give you the patience and passion to carry on and on and on. Thank you very, very much.